Picture this: Brené Brown standing alone on a rocky ridge, wind biting her cheeks, wilderness stretching endlessly before her. She's surrounded, yet utterly alone, not because she's lost, but because she's found something others are too wary to claim: true belonging. But what does it really mean to belong? Is it fitting in, or something wilder, scarier, and deeper? Brené dares us to brave that wilderness, stepping into discomfort where we might lose others' approval but find ourselves. What she found, there will turn everything you thought about belonging on its head. Let's start at the edge. Brené's idea of belonging isn't cozy campfire chatter. It's a raw, untamed experience that challenges us to stand alone, sometimes against the crowd. Here, what that looks like up close. On a cold morning in the Georgia wilderness, Brené found herself perched on a rocky outcrop, wind howling around her, no one else in sight. This wasn't loneliness. It was a baptism. The moment she understood belonging isn't about people-pleasing or blending in. It's about showing up as your true self, even if it means standing alone. That dawn-lit ridge became a symbol. You belong when you choose courage over comfort. But the question lingers: how often are we brave enough to choose that? Brown invites us to see true belonging as a sacred contract with ourselves, not a social handshake we earn or negotiate with others. Imagine belonging like a spiritual pilgrimage, where you commit daily to being deeply, unshakably you. This isn't about changing your stripes to fit the herd, but about carrying your individual bag with all its jagged edges, loving those edges, even when the crowd prefers smooth conformity. Here's the twist Brené throws at us. The very culture screaming about inclusion might be the biggest obstacle. The more we chase fitting in, the more we lose ourselves. Belonging isn't a package deal with others, it's a solo performance on a public stage. Ironically, the freedom comes when you stop negotiating acceptance and just own your story, and that's the space where true belonging blooms. Brené doesn't just paint pictures, she hands you a compass. 4 fierce practices slice through the noise, guiding you closer to belonging that sticks, not just slips through your fingers. Here's the cheat code mapped out. In one memorable moment, Brené shares a story from a community workshop where people erupted into heated debate, different beliefs, clashing egos. Yet, when a participant consciously held space for opposing views, tension cooled instantly. This wasn't magic but hard-earned emotional muscle, the ability to be present without judgment, to make room for uncomfortable truths and contradictions without retreating. It's a muscle most of us avoid training, but one that's essential for true belonging. Think of vulnerability like a scalpel slicing through the fog of pretense. Brené describes it as showing up with your messy, imperfect self, not armor-plated or polished, but honest and exposed. This rawness is the ground where connection roots itself. When you're vulnerable, you invite others into your truth, and suddenly the wilderness feels less wild. It's the paradox. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the most formidable kind of strength. Every morning, Brené challenges you to choose courage over comfort. It's like deciding to put on wet shoes for a hike, an uncomfortable choice that promises deeper reward. By practicing this, the wild terrain of social pressures and inner doubts becomes navigable. Over time, that choice shifts from struggle to rhythm, creating a personal revolution where showing up trumps fitting in and fear loses its grip. Here's where it stings. Brené diagnoses a deep cultural wound, a spiritual crisis shaking the foundations of how we relate. Why is connection so fragile in an age that's more connected than ever? Despite more taps and swipes than ever, Brené explains people chronically feel disconnected, like shouting into a void. She recalls interviewing a millennial named Jess, who felt overwhelmed keeping up with social media's highlight reel yet lonelier than ever. It's a paradox. Technology fills our days with noise, but empties our hearts of real belonging, like having thousands of acquaintances but no true tribe. Perfectionism and people-pleasing masquerade as belonging hacks, but Brené shows how they're double-edged swords. When you chase flawless, you spin in a hamster wheel of anxiety, constantly editing yourself to win approval. The real trap? You lose sight of who you are beneath the gloss, silencing your voice to fit molds that ultimately isolate you further, not bring you closer. The widening political and ideological chasms aren't just news stories. Brené lays bare how polarization fractures both community and self by pushing us into bunkers of us versus them. Her breakthrough insight? True belonging transcends tribal loyalty. It's about embracing complexity and sitting with discomfort rather than retreating into safety zones. Without that, we're lost in echo chambers instead of true connection. Belonging asks for a price: integrity and authenticity. Brené isn't sugarcoating it here. Living with this courage flares you up as different, but it's the only way through. A standout moment is Brené describing her own heartbreak when she first publicly shared her own imperfections. The backlash stung, but she realized integrity was her compass home. It wasn't about never making mistakes, but about owning them fully and speaking her truth anyway. This daily commitment to integrity is what draws a line between belonging that suffocates versus belonging that liberates. And it's non-negotiable. Showing up without integrity is just fitting in on borrowed time. Authenticity is Brené's battle cry. She tells a story of a man named Marcus who used to wear a corporate mask in meetings, hiding parts of himself to blend in. When he dared undo that mask, vulnerability cracked open more authentic, effective connections. It was terrifying initially, who wants to be exposed, but it sparked deep respect and opened doors others guarded fiercely. Authenticity flies in the face of social masks that comfort but alienate. Criticism is the wilderness's howling wind, and uncertainty the thick fog. Brené dives into moments when she stood vulnerable amid public doubt, spotlighted by critics online. Instead of retreating, she leaned into the discomfort that true belonging demands. That's the transformation. Disarming fear of judgment unleashes power to act and belong on your own terms, even if that means standing apart rather than blending in. At last, the heart of Brené's message: belonging is a spiritual journey more than a social fix. It requires your full self, daring you to find holiness even alone. Brené recounts a powerful ritual on an Alaskan retreat, where participants sat in silent reflection, listening to wilderness sounds, wind, birds, water, until a sense of sacred interconnectedness dawned. Belonging became more than social glue. It was a spiritual practice, a daily commitment to honoring every part of yourself and others. This ritual moment revealed that belonging can't be rushed or forced. It's cultivated in patience, presence, and reverence. The wilderness is as much metaphor as place. Brené explores how sacredness lives in those moments when you choose solitude over conformity. She tells of a woman who walked away from a toxic family dynamic, painfully alone but fiercely true to herself. In that solitude, she found a deep, almost holy belonging to her own soul. It's a radical call. Sometimes belonging means standing alone, and that's where you find your purest connection. Finally, Brené highlights the power of community rooted not in sameness, but shared humanity. A messy, imperfect, courageous humanity. She imagines a circle where differences fuel richness, not division, and where connection is forged through empathy and respect rather than agreement. That's the radical belonging we can all cultivate, a community that asks you to show up fully and be honored for exactly who you are. Remember that ridge where Brené stood alone, the wind wild and biting? That's where belonging became a fierce choice, not a cozy default. You don't find belonging by shrinking or molding, you find it by showing up fully, braving uncertainty, and standing alone when you must. Try this. Tomorrow, lean into one uncomfortable truth about yourself, speak it out loud or journal it. Just root yourself in authenticity. That single act is the first step into your own wilderness, leading you to a belonging that's real, sacred, and unshakable. Subscribe for more book summaries like this one.